Hello, everyone. So my computer died last night, and my daughter took the cord, so I didn't want to go in her room and wake her up. So we're gonna go ahead and get started and get finished with the last of the Gus pattern weight. So yesterday we went ahead and we at the base of our pumpkin. We covered that in light blue clay. So we're gonna pick up from there. I'm gonna go ahead and tilt my screen down and we'll get started. All right, so we are going to take the clay that we had left over, the light blue clay that we had left over from yesterday, and we're going to mix in some more of the blue. I would say about an eighth of a line, and mix it in with a piece about the size of a grape. Make sure you mix it really well so you're getting one solid color and not a bunch of swirls. Now, if you want to add more blue or just use the blue from right out of the package, it's fine. Or again, you can use whatever color you want. I'm just going off of what I want to do. Also, make sure that your work surface is clear. So I'm going to give this a little wipe. It's not much of a difference, the color, so I'm going to go ahead and cut about another eighth off and mix it in. All right, so now that I got the color blue that I want, and it's all one solid color, no swirls or strips of blue going through, what we need to do is we need to roll out thin lines to set into your grooves. Just a little tip, if you want to shade, you can do so at this point in time. These are just regular pastel chalks, and if you want to shade, I'll do a little part on this. You can use one of your paint brushes, and say we want to shade, give it a little depth. Just rub your paintbrush on there, and then you can just brush it on there. So if you can see, it just gives the pumpkin a little bit more depth, maybe a little bit of more character, a little bit of texture. Same thing as like blushing. If you watch the Edna video where I blushed her cheeks with just some cheap Target blush, it's the same thing. With shading or like this, so the light would be hitting directly on your highest points. So your deepest points, in this case the grooves, they would get the darker shading color. And then if you wanted to go back through and add some highlights, you could go back through with white and dust the tops. I'll do that here in a second. So now if you want to do some highlighting, you could go in with some white. And if you don't want to, you could take your blade and just lightly shave off some into a powder. And then right on like the centers, give a light shading. If you find Michael's and Joann's, they sell pearlescent powders or pearlescent pigments. You could definitely use that as well to shade and highlight, kind of like makeup. Alright, so now that I showed you that little trick, make sure your board is clean, hands are clean. We're going to go ahead and do your thin strips. Just roll it out. I want to say about the width of an uncooked spaghetti noodle. All right. And then starting at the center point, the top, you're just gonna lay that right in the valley. Give a little press. You don't want to press too hard. And then just barely cut it off at the end. You want to repeat that for all of the sides. Alright, again, just lay it in the valley, give it a little press. Alright, almost. I hate this computer. Two more to go. Alright, and one last one. And we'll be done adding the roll out even, so we're going to try it again. Alright. Alright. Cut it off at the bottom. Alright, so now that we have this part done, so we got all of these, all the lines in there, we want to take some of the darker blue that we just mixed, and we're going to make the little stem or leaf part on top of the pumpkin or tomato or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to roll this out. Actually, we need a little bit bigger piece. So this is about the size of a grape. We're gonna roll it out. So we're going to roll it out. What is that? What is that? Okay, so we got a circle. And what I did, so our pumpkins has six sections each, right? So does your hex nut. So what I do to make sure that I get those 6 and try to get them pretty even, so I take that hex nut, put it in, and I just take my tool, the pointed silicone tool, and just mark where the edges are. You're not going through your clay, you just want a guideline. So if you can see the lines, hold on a second. Oh boy, this Thanksgiving is going to be awesome. So we're going to take and draw your lines up to make triangles. See? Now what we'll do is we'll just take our knife and follow those lines that you made for the triangles. These are scraps. So now if you look, see, you just cut along those lines. Now obviously we don't want this part showing, so this part is going to be laying down. You want your smooth side up. And we will take and lay the center of this to the center of that, making sure that your peaks of your triangles are, if you have any rough edges you want to smooth out, now would be the time to do it. Okay, so the point of your triangle, each section of your pumpkin gets, see, the point of your triangle is in the middle of the wedge of your pumpkin, and each wedge should get their own little triangle. once you get it in the place that you want it, just go ahead and lightly start pushing down to get that attached, to get your clay attached. Now, I took a sewing needle, and I made little dash marks to make it look like little thread stitches, like you would see from a sewing machine. So you just take and press, not straight down, but you want to do it at an angle so it gives you that line. See? And you just do that all the way around. So this part, if there's any parts that don't stick down, you can take a just a dot, just a tiny bit, stick it on there, and then just pat it down so that way it'll make sure it'll stick when you pop it in the oven. Okay, so your top is done. Now what we're going to do is in your picture we have the part where it sticks down like this. So you're going to take some of your lighter blue, Again, it's about the size of, for me, a small grape. And again, you can do whatever size that you want. You can do smaller, you can do bigger, doesn't matter. Roll it into a ball, and then we're going to make that teardrop thing again. It looks like a teardrop. It's too long. I'll cut that off. Now we're going to take some of the darker blue, and you don't have to do the 6 points that we did for the top of there. I just freehand like a star basically. What you can do if you want, I need a little bit more. Pull some out. All right, so if you take your style or your silicone pointed tool, you can freehand a star. Just and then you just same thing as you did before. You just take your blade and follow your guidelines. Okay. Star. Then you take it, put your middle point again, and just drape it down. Just like that. And then if you want, again, I did it for the one that I made before, so I'll go with my needle. You can also use a toothpick and just make your little dashes or your little sewing lines. Okay. See? Now, decide where you want to have this hang down. When it's on top of one of your threads, or if you want it in the middle, if you want it sticking up like this or going down like that. For me, I want mine to be something like right here. I want it like that, right? So you want to make sure that it's stuck on there. If you want, you could actually take a piece of your or not your chopstick, your the end of a toothpick. Where's my... So about 1/2 inch. Okay, so I know where I want it. I'll stick this in. So the toothpick will help, but you also need to make sure that your 2 pieces of clay are touching. Okay, so like that. Now take a piece of your piece of the darker color blue and just roll a thin line out. Okay. So for me, what I like to do, because it'll look like the thread is coming out of the little thing that hangs down. Just poke a hole, open it up a little bit. See? And then you can take your toothpick and dab some of the bacon bond on there. Stick it back in that hole. Wiggle around a little bit. And then you can stick your, you should have it pointed in. Stick the pointed end down in that hole. Just like that. And then any extra, just cut off in the middle. And you won't see this part because Gus is going to be sitting on it. So just put some light pressure on there. Make sure it's attached. And now your pumpkin part is done. So we want to go ahead and finish up Gus. So all we have to do is make his legs and his shoes and then attach him to the top of your pumpkin. So let's clean your hands because we're going to start working in brown again. You're going to set your pumpkin aside. Okay, we're going to make his shoes. So if you look at his shoes, remember doing the head, it's the same concept as we're just going to cut a piece of red off. And I'm saying about the size of a raisin, maybe. Now, if you don't want to use the bright red, you can mix in like brown to give it a more earthy color. But I'm gonna, since we've been using bright colors with him, I'm going to use the, I'm just gonna stick with the bright red. So actually, we need 2 chunks that are the size of a raisin. I'm gonna squish them together and then cut it in half. So that way you're getting approximately the same amount of clay in each shoe. So that way there's less of a chance that one shoe will be bigger than the other or smaller than the other or whatever. So we're going to roll those into balls. And then we're going to make teardrops. Right? Then we're going to give them a small squish because the bottom of shoes they're flat. So at this point in time, you can round your toes if you want to, the toes, which I do. And then you take your tips and then you just point them, you just nudge them up, just the tip of the shoe. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to take another red and put it aside. Or actually roll it into a ball. Roll it out to a little thicker than a spaghetti noodle, uncooked spaghetti noodle. Cut it in half and then set those aside. Now we're going to do the legs. Since we've been working with red and red stains, color transfer from red is ugh. Going to make sure your hands you wipe your hands down. So now we're going to take some brown. Make sure that your blade is also clean. And we're going to cut a chunk and roll it into a ball. And I'm just going to say about the size of milk dud. Roll it out. Right. So we're going to cut it in half. And then we're going to do the same with this side. Now if you need to get the same size, just put the one that you cut where the tops are even. Just, there you go. Now for the legs, I did it where they're a little thinner on the bottom, and that's because the legs are going to be here. So I want to make sure that Gus sits flat. So take your little shoes in the very top of the rounded part in the middle. You're just going to make a hole. And just by swirling your tool around, wiggling it, giving it some wiggle, we're going to take a little dot of baking bond in there. See? Just a little bit. And stick your leg right in there. So now you got two little legs, okay? But these little red strips that we rolled out, we are going to wrap those around the leg. Now, you might have to roll them out even a little bit more just because you want to make sure it gets around the whole bottom of the leg. See? And you do the same thing with the other side. If you rolled it too long, you can use your blade and very gently just cut off the extra. You barely push. And the reason why I do the seam in the back is because the back is going to be resting against this. So now that we have this done, we're just going to assemble. So you don't need this long of a piece. I mean, it would go down. You're going to do it right in the middle because the middle is going to be all clay, so you would be able to push it all the way down. I'm going to just cut maybe about a 1/4 inch off. That's still good. Okay. And also, so right in the middle, you don't want to push him all the way down yet because you want to get your feet under there. So decide where you want his feet. I think I want one there. Hey, sweetie. I want one there. Now that we have his feet where we want him, we go ahead and push him the rest of the way down. Or actually, I'm going to lift him up a little bit or pull him out completely. So I see the indentation. You could actually just take some bacon bond, flip him over, and put some like that. Then also some on the toothpick. And then we're going to push him back down in that hole that we already made. Now if anything leaks out, you can take your paintbrush, just give it a little cleanup. The only thing that we have left to do for Gus is his tail. So you're just going to take some of the brown, roll it out into a thin strip where the bottom, you're going to have a pointed end like a mouse tail, and it gets thicker as it goes to the top. If you look at any animal's tail, it's always thinner at the bottom and it gets thicker as you go towards the body. So that's what we're going to do. What's the matter with you? You want to go? You want me to open the door? Go on. All right, go on. Okay. They'll be here at 4? Okay. My husband was just letting me know when my parents are going to be here. Okay. So here's your tail. And again, you have the end of your tail is a little bit thinner than the top of your tail. So you're going to just turn him around. And with your pointer tool, just wedge the top of his tail. You're just gonna work work it in there. See? Now you can leave it hanging like that. I think it adds a little bit more character if it's actually he's moving his tail a little bit. So just play with it. See how you can always take your tip and nudge and push. And then once you got it in position where you like it, just barely push, and we're just making sure that the clay is connected. And now your Gus is done. Your front and the back side. Now we are going to do a final bake on him. We're going to pop him in the oven at 200 degrees and cook him for about 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. Once he is done cooking, leave him in the oven until he's completely cooled off. You don't want to touch him or anything. After he's done, you can, if you want to give his face a little character, you can take some blush. I'll use this color. And this blush, I got 2 of them because they had 2 different shades. Got them at Target. I think they were like $1.50, $2. And I only use them for clay. And they'll last me forever. So I'm just gonna, and then right under his eyes. Okay. And then when he is completely done and cooled off and done baking, you're going to take your polyurethane. Make sure that you do this on parchment paper. If you do it on newspaper or regular paper, when it dries, the paper is going to stick. Whereas if you use wax paper or parchment paper, it won't stick. You may have like a little dribble where it kind of pulled off at the bottom, but you can always use sandpaper to sand that, just the smooth the edges out. So that's your Gus. That's your pattern weight. So now you have the basics on how to wrap your clay around your weights and what to use as weights. I use not only washers and hex nuts. I use bolts. I use anything like metal that has a substantial weight to it. And it all depends on what the base of your the shape of your base. Like for the thimble, the bottom, I used 2 washers, and then I used a big bolt and then a small bolt. And then for the ball, I did the same thing that I did inside of the pumpkin, where I used a small bolt, a big bolt, and then a small bolt. And then here, for this one, I actually used a bolt and then screwed the hex nut on for the trash can, since it's just a cylinder. So it's all you just have to play around and just look at the piece that you want to do, or sketch it out and decide like which shapes would best work and give you the weight that you want for your pattern weight. So I hope, hold on. I hope that I was able to teach you something that helps you relax and to get your creative side going. Like I said, there's no right or wrong in creating with clay or drawing or any type of art. Art is definitely the quote, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's art to a T. I mean, what may look good to me may not appeal to you, and that is not wrong and it's not right. It's just what you prefer. So again, the colors that I used or the way that I did it, the techniques I used, it's not necessarily the right or the wrong way. It's just the way that works best for me. So if I was able to help you out or get you started or give you any additional tips that you may have from previously working with clay, then I'm happy to do that. I am going to say goodbye, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. My parents are getting ready to come in, and we've got a lot to do and prepare. So again, I thank you for joining us for the sculpt along, and I thank you for being patient while I got these finished up. So again, I hope everybody has enjoyed the sculpt along, and I can't wait to see what you guys create. Thanks, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.